Imagine a silence so profound it could swallow a scream. Not the peaceful hush of a sleeping town, but the heavy, suffocating quiet that descends after something irrevocably breaks. This isn't a story whispered in shadows or gleaned from dusty archives. This is a tale that unfolded in the sterile glare of a hospital, a place usually associated with new beginnings, with hope blooming in tiny, fragile forms. But beneath that veneer of medical precision and comforting routine, a seed of deception was sown, a seed that would lie dormant for years, only to sprout into a monstrous, life-altering truth. Our story centers around two families, the Harrisons and the Millers, their lives unknowingly intertwined by a single, fateful event. Sarah and Tom Harrison were ecstatic, the kind of joy that paints the world in brighter hues. After years of longing, they were finally holding their newborn daughter, Emily. She was perfect, a tiny miracle with her mother's delicate features and Tom's dark, inquisitive eyes. The air in their hospital room was thick with unspoken dreams, of first steps, of school plays, of a future painted in the soft colors of family. In the very same hospital, just a few rooms down the hall, another couple, Mary and John Miller, were experiencing a similar yet subtly different joy. Their son, Daniel, had arrived after a difficult labor. He was healthy, robust, a little fighter, but Mary couldn't shake a nagging feeling, a whisper of unease that she couldn't quite place. Perhaps it was the exhaustion, the lingering pain, or maybe, just maybe, it was something more profound, a primal instinct that something wasn't quite right. Dr. Abernathy was a respected figure in the community, a man with decades of experience etched onto his kindly face. He had delivered countless babies, a comforting presence in the anxious moments leading up to new life. But behind his reassuring smile and practiced bedside manner lay a secret, a burden he carried deep within the recesses of his conscience. On that particular day, the demands of a busy maternity ward had stretched the limits of the nursing staff, a chaotic ballet of hurried footsteps, beeping machines, and the insistent cries of newborns. In the midst of this flurry, a critical error occurred, a slip-up so monumental its consequences would ripple through years to come, forever altering the lives of the two families. The Harrisons took Emily home, cocooning her in a world of love and doting attention. Sarah meticulously documented every milestone, every coo, every tiny hand gesture in a baby book, her heart overflowing with a love so fierce it felt almost tangible. Tom, a man of quiet strength, would spend hours simply watching his daughter sleep, a protective instinct stirring within him. They were a picture of idyllic family life, the kind that graced magazine covers and inspired longing in the hearts of others. Meanwhile, the Millers settled into their own version of parenthood with Daniel. Mary's initial unease faded with time, replaced by the all-consuming demands and joys of raising a child. Daniel grew into a lively, energetic boy, a whirlwind of curiosity and boundless enthusiasm. John, a practical and grounded man, found immense pride in his son's every achievement. Yet, deep down, Mary occasionally felt a flicker of that initial doubt, a fleeting sense of disconnect that she would quickly dismiss as mere maternal anxiety. Years spun into decades. Emily Harrison grew into a bright, artistic young woman, with a passion for painting that filled the house with vibrant colors. She had Sarah's gentle nature and Tom's thoughtful demeanor, a harmonious blend of her parents' best qualities. Daniel Miller blossomed into a charismatic and athletic teenager, popular at school and full of life. He shared John's love for sports and Mary's warm, outgoing personality. The two families lived their lives in parallel, unaware of the invisible thread that connected them, a thread woven from a single pivotal mistake. But fate, as it often does, had a way of revealing the truths hidden beneath the surface. The first hint of the impending storm arrived subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a faint tremor before a major earthquake. It began with a routine blood test for Emily, required for a school sports team. The results came back with an anomaly, a discrepancy that the family doctor initially dismissed as a lab error. But Sarah, a meticulous woman with a keen eye for detail, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She remembered the countless times she had looked at Emily and seen her own reflection. And yet, there was something, a subtle difference in blood type that simply didn't add up according to the basic rules of genetics. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to take root. Sarah's initial unease morphed into a gnawing anxiety. She started poring over old photographs of Emily as a baby, comparing them to pictures of herself and Tom at the same age. The resemblance, once so clear in her mind, now seemed less certain. Small details she had previously overlooked began to stand out. The slightly different shape of her ears, the subtle shade of her hair. Each observation fueled her growing suspicion, a chilling realization that something was fundamentally wrong. Driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, Sarah delved deeper. She contacted the hospital where Emily was born, requesting her original medical records. The process was slow, bureaucratic, filled with red tape and polite refusals citing the passage of time. But Sarah was persistent, her determination fueled by a mother's unwavering need to know the truth. Finally, after weeks of relentless inquiries, she received a heavily redacted file. Within those documents, buried amidst routine medical jargon, was a single, jarring note, a handwritten annotation about a potential discrepancy in newborn identification. The blood ran cold in Sarah's veins. Meanwhile, the Millers were facing their own subtle challenges. Mary's health had taken a turn, and she required a series of medical tests. During one particularly comprehensive panel, a genetic marker surfaced that seemed inconsistent with John's known family history. The doctor, a young and thorough professional, suggested further testing, not suspecting the seismic implications of his recommendation. Mary, though concerned about her health, couldn't shake a faint echo of that long-ago unease she had felt in the hospital after Daniel's birth. Fate seemed to be orchestrating a collision course for the two families, with Dr. Abernathy unknowingly at the epicenter. The weight of his decades-old secret had become a crushing burden. He had tried to bury the memory of that chaotic day, the rushed identifications, the unsettling feeling that had lingered afterward. But the past has a way of refusing to stay buried. He had followed both families from a distance over the years, a silent observer haunted by the potential consequences of his mistake. He had seen Emily grow into a vibrant young woman, so like Sarah in so many ways, yet not entirely. He had noticed Daniel's energetic spirit, a mirror of John's youthful vitality, and yet something felt off, a subtle dissonance that only he, privy to the truth, could perceive. The mounting medical evidence eventually led both Sarah and Mary down similar paths of inquiry. Sarah, armed with the hospital's cryptic note, sought out a genetic specialist. The results were undeniable and devastating. There was no biological link between Emily and either Sarah or Tom. The world Sarah knew shattered into a million pieces. The daughter she had raised, the child she had loved unconditionally, was not her own. At the same time, Mary's more extensive genetic testing revealed a similar, equally shocking truth. Daniel was not biologically related to her or John. The implications were staggering, the emotional fallout unimaginable. Two families, living separate lives for nearly 2 decades, were suddenly confronted with the reality that their children had been switched at birth. The revelation sent shockwaves through both households. Tom, initially skeptical of Sarah's growing fears, was devastated by the scientific proof. The image of his family, once so clear and comforting, now felt like a carefully constructed illusion. For John, the news was equally earth-shattering, challenging his very identity as a father to the boy he had raised as his own. The question that hung heavy in the air, the question that tormented both Sarah and Mary, was, who were their biological children, and where were they? The search began tentatively, fueled by a mixture of desperation and a flicker of hope. They revisited the hospital records, this time with a renewed urgency, piecing together the fragmented information, searching for any clue that might lead them to their biological families. It didn't take long for the pieces to fall into place, the names Harrison and Miller surfacing in close proximity within the maternity ward logs of that fateful day. The horrifying truth began to dawn on both families. Their daughters and sons had been swapped. The realization was like a punch to the gut, leaving them breathless with disbelief and a dawning sense of profound loss. The next step was inevitable, a confrontation with the past, a search for answers, and ultimately, a reckoning with the man who had unknowingly set this devastating chain of events in motion. Dr. Abernathy. The confrontation with Dr. Abernathy was fraught with raw emotion. Sarah and Tom, accompanied by Mary and John, stood before the elderly doctor, the weight of their shared tragedy hanging heavy in the air. Dr. Abernathy, his face pale and etched with guilt, did not deny their accusations. The years of suppressed remorse flooded to the surface as he recounted the chaotic events of that day, the understaffed ward, the momentary lapse in protocol that had led to the irreversible error. His voice trembled as he spoke of the silent burden he had carried, the knowledge that he had irrevocably altered the lives of two innocent families. The details that emerged were both heartbreaking and infuriating. A temporary nurse, new to the unit and overwhelmed by the workload, had inadvertently placed the wrong identification bracelets on the newborns. Dr. Abernathy, in the rush and commotion, had failed to double-check, a lapse in judgment that would have catastrophic consequences. He explained how the mistake was likely realized shortly after the families had left the hospital, but fear and a misguided attempt to protect his reputation had prevented him from coming forward. The secret had festered, growing darker and more complex with each passing year. As the truth unfolded, the emotional impact on the two couples was immense. Sarah and Mary grappled with the agonizing reality that the children they had raised were not biologically theirs, while the children they had given birth to had been raised by strangers. The years of shared memories, of unconditional love, were now intertwined with a profound sense of loss and confusion. Tom and John struggled with their own emotions, the paternal bonds they had forged now challenged by the revelation of a biological truth they had never known. The conversation took a shocking turn when Dr. Abernathy revealed another layer of complexity to the already devastating situation. He confessed that he had not only been aware of the switch but had also made a deliberate decision to keep it hidden, fearing the legal and personal ramifications. He admitted to discreetly following both families over the years, a silent, guilt-ridden observer. He had seen the love and happiness within both households and had convinced himself that revealing the truth would cause more harm than good. This admission ignited a fresh wave of anger and betrayal. His silence, his deliberate inaction, had robbed them of the truth for nearly 2 decades. The revelation of Dr. Abernathy's deliberate concealment of the truth led to a tense and emotionally charged exchange. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and the fragile composure of the two couples began to crumble. The weight of the years of unknowingly raising the wrong child, the missed opportunities to connect with their biological offspring, the foundation of their families shaken to its core, it was all too much to bear. As the initial shock began to subside, the focus shifted to the children, Emily and Daniel, now young adults on the cusp of their own lives. How would they react to this earth-shattering news? How would their identities be affected by the revelation that the parents they had known and loved were not their biological parents? The prospect of telling them, of unraveling the lives they had always known, was daunting and filled with uncertainty. The decision was made to approach Emily and Daniel together, as two sets of parents united by a shared, extraordinary circumstance. The meeting was carefully planned, held in a neutral setting, with Dr. Abernathy present to offer his remorseful explanation. The air in the room was thick with anticipation and trepidation as Emily and Daniel were told the unbelievable truth that they had been switched at birth. Their reactions were a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and a profound sense of disorientation. The foundations of their identities, their sense of belonging, were suddenly shaken. The stories they had been told about their birth, the resemblances they had seen in their parents, the very fabric of their lives felt like a carefully constructed lie. The emotional fallout was immense, leaving Emily and Daniel struggling to process the magnitude of the revelation. Their lives, like those of their parents, had been irrevocably changed by a secret that had been buried for far too long. The immediate aftermath of the revelation was a period of intense emotional turmoil for everyone involved. Emily and Daniel grappled with the complex reality of having two sets of parents, the ones who had raised them and the ones who had given them life. The bonds of love and familiarity they had formed over the years were undeniable, yet the biological connection to another family created a profound sense of internal conflict. Sarah and Tom and Mary and John faced the agonizing challenge of navigating their relationships with both the children they had raised and their biological offspring. The love they felt for Emily and Daniel remained unwavering despite the revelation. Simultaneously, a deep yearning grew to connect with their biological children, to learn about their lives, their experiences, the years they had unknowingly missed. The two families began to spend time together, cautiously at first, navigating the unfamiliar terrain of their intertwined lives. There were awkward silences, hesitant conversations, and moments of profound emotional connection. Emily and Daniel, though initially overwhelmed, gradually began to forge relationships with their biological parents and siblings, discovering shared traits and unexpected similarities. Dr. Abernathy, burdened by his guilt and remorse, offered his full cooperation and support to both families, providing them with any information they sought and expressing his deepest apologies for the pain he had caused. While his apology could not undo the past, it offered a measure of closure and allowed the families to begin the long process of healing. The legal ramifications of the baby switch were complex and sensitive. While there was a clear case of medical negligence, the families were hesitant to pursue legal action that might further disrupt the lives of Emily and Daniel. Their primary focus was on building relationships and moving forward together. Ultimately, they opted for a private settlement with the hospital, ensuring that Dr. Abernathy faced appropriate consequences for his actions while also providing financial support for Emily and Daniel as they navigated this new chapter in their lives. The story of the Harrison and Miller families is not one that can be neatly tied up with a perfect fairy tale ending. The scars of the past remain, and the complexities of their intertwined lives will continue to evolve. However, amidst the pain and confusion, there emerged a powerful testament to the enduring bonds of love and family. The love that Sarah and Tom felt for Emily, and Mary and John for Daniel, did not diminish with the revelation of the biological truth. Instead, it expanded to encompass their biological children, creating a unique and unconventional family unit bound by an extraordinary circumstance. Emily and Daniel, though forever marked by the knowledge of their swapped identities, found strength and resilience in embracing their expanded families. They learned that family is not solely defined by blood, but by love, connection, and shared experiences. Their story serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life, the impact of human error, and the enduring power of the human spirit to adapt and find love even in the most unexpected of circumstances. And so, as our story draws to a close, we are left to ponder the profound implications of that single mistake in a busy hospital ward. A mistake that remained hidden for years, only to unravel and reshape the lives of two families in ways no one could have ever imagined. It's a story that reminds us that truth, however painful, has a way of surfacing, and that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the human heart has an incredible capacity for forgiveness and love. If you found this story as gripping and thought-provoking as we did, please give this video a like, subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Your support helps us bring these compelling narratives to light.